Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Suzanne Peterson, and warmly welcome the family of driver Sidney Woodbury, whose story will be told shortly by Captain Andrew Waters from the Australian Navy, who is a member of driver Woodbury's family. We also warmly welcome the delegation from the Newtown Returned and Services League sub-branch. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths or floral tributes will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family, visitors to the memorial, and Australian Defence Force cadets from Albury, Wodonga, Victoria. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they'd done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who gave their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to driver Sidney Woodbury. Sidney Woodbury was born in 1886 in Mangrove Creek, New South Wales, one of 10 children born to Edwin and Frances Ann Woodbury. Having attended Mangrove Creek Public School, Sidney took up employment as a labourer. In 1915, he married Hilda Pemberton. The couple later moved to Surrey Hills. Sidney Woodbury was among the first men from his district to volunteer, enlisting in the Australian Imperial Force on the 2nd of February 1915. He was assigned to the 18th Battalion and embarked from Sydney on board the troop ship Ceramic on the 25th of June 1915. During the journey, Sidney contracted pneumonia and was sent to England to recover while the rest of his battalion continued to Gallipoli. In October, Sidney briefly joined his battalion on the Gallipoli Peninsula before evacuating with the rest of his unit in December. In January 1916, Sidney was sent to Egypt, where he transferred to the 5th Machine Gun Company. Shortly afterwards, he embarked for France with his unit, arriving in mid-February. In May 1916, his rank was changed to driver ahead of his first major battle at Pozières in July, where Australian units sustained more than 23,000 casualties. In August, Woodbury was again in the firing line at Mouquet Farm, where a further 11,000 Australian casualties were sustained attempting to take the ridge. Following his unit's action at Mouquet Farm, driver Woodbury was taken ill and was sent to hospital to recover. His illness was such that he did not rejoin his battalion until January 1917, ahead of a series of bloody battles which followed the German retreat to the Hindenburg Line. In May, Woodbury's battalion fought during the Second Battle of Bullecourt, in which Australian units took more than 7,000 casualties. His unit then moved to Ypres section in late 1917, where Woodbury took part in fierce fighting at the Battle of Menin Road in September. Advancing troops were attempting to capture the ridge in the face of heavily entrenched German defensive positions. Though the battle was largely successful, it came at a cost of more than 5,000 casualties. The following month, Woodbury was again in the firing line during the ill-fated Battle of Pol Capel, which cost a further 1,250 Australian casualties. Driver Woodbury survived the battles of 1917 mostly unscathed. In early 1918, his unit was moved back to France, where he transferred to the 2nd Machine Gun Battalion. On the 16th of March, he was taking rations to company headquarters at Jontel, east of Amiens. As he was returning to transport lines near the village of Beauve, he was hit by shrapnel from an exploding shell and killed instantly. His comrade, George Bruster, wrote a letter of condolence to Woodbury's father. "I am writing on behalf of his many friends to offer our heartfelt condolence in your irrevocable loss. Your son, Sidbury, as he was affectionately called, was greatly respected by all and was a staunch comrade and a true soldier." When we heard the sad news that he was hit, we rushed to his assistance only to find poor Sid was past all earthly aid and had passed on to the great unknown. He suffered no pain as death was instantaneous. Former commander of the Australian Corps, William Birdwood, also wrote to Woodbury's father conveying his sympathy. "I feel for you very deeply in your sad loss. I know well that it is irreparable, but trust it will afford you comfort to know that your boy was prepared to make the supreme sacrifice, fighting gallantly for our noble cause of right and liberty. Driver Sidney Woodbury was buried at Bove West Cemetery near where he fell, in a grave dug by his friends and comrades. He was 32 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember driver Sidney Woodbury, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and for a hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.